Good afternoon and welcome to the May 12th regular council meeting. Thank you for attending, gallery members and live. And welcome council members, staff. I call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. I ask council at this time if there is any added items to the agenda. All right, seeing none then, we'll move down to adoption of the agenda, please. Do we have consent to adopt the agenda as presented? All right, we have consent for the adoption of the agenda for May 12th. Moving down to item 2, adoption of previous minutes, please. Page 3 of your agenda, regular council meeting minutes for April 28. Does council have any errors, omissions, or additions? We have consensus. We have consensus for the regular council meeting minutes of April 28th. Thank you. Moving down to public hearing at this time. If anyone is following us, it's on page 9 of your agenda. I will read a very brief statement for pecuniary interest for municipal councillors. Section 172 of the Municipal Government Act states that you may not take part in the discussion and decision-making on any matter in which you have a pecuniary interest. The legislation attempts to ensure that you are not discriminated either for or against by virtue of your membership on council. If you have a pecuniary interest, you are to disclose that you have an interest and its general nature. You are to abstain from any decision of the matter from voting. You are to leave the room until the matter has been dealt with, and you should make sure that your abstention is recorded in the minutes. You are not to be discriminated against and are entitled to participate in a public hearing as a member of the public. I declare the public hearing for bylaw 2025-08 open at 1:02 p.m. And I would ask the Municipal Land Use Planner, Kyle Sloan, to please approach the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl and Council. Bylaw 2025-08 proposes an amendment to the land use bylaw to rezone 2 parcels of land, lots 31 and 32, block 11, plan 1711276, from general residential, the R2 district, to medium density residential, which is the R3 district. This rezoning would align with the East Olds area redevelopment plan that pertains to the area that the lots are in. There is no proposed development at this time. It is just to bring the lots into alignment prior to that potentially taking place. This bylaw received first reading on April 14th, 2025. Notice of the public hearing was advertised in the newspaper, on the town website, and circulated to adjacent property owners. The town has received no written correspondence receiving the proposed bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sloan. We'll continue on, and I will explain the procedures to be followed. We do have gallery members here. Presentations before council shall be brief and to the point, limited to 5 minutes. Council shall not allow cross-examination of persons giving information, and it will not be necessary for the persons giving information to verify his or her qualifications. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. No debating or questions from the floor will be allowed, and no written or verbal submissions will be received by council after the public hearing is closed. Persons addressing council will state their name and their address, indicate if they are speaking on their own behalf for a client, company, or a citizens group. We have 3 categories. I will be asking for those in support, those opposed, and those deemed to be affected. So I will now start with those in support. Second time for those in support. We will move down now to those opposed of the proposed bylaw. Those opposed? And now a first time for those persons deemed to be affected or that wish to speak. Please approach the podium, sir. State your name. And if you're on your own behalf or a citizens group or a client.
Okay. My name's Ken Dewanek, and I am the owner of the property adjacent to the lot at 4834 52nd Street. I have a question. I'm neither opposed or non-opposed. I'm just wondering about rezoning to R3, what that entails as far as any kind of parking for a developer that is going to build something here, whether it be a duplex or an apartment building or what, because there's not a lot of parking available for any inhabitants there. And I have the building next door that I lease part of it out to a business, and we continuously have problems with people parking where customers of my person that's renting the place are affected that they can't park anywhere. And I'm just wondering what R3 zoning entails as far as bylaws for parking for any developer that is going to build there.
Thank you very much. That's a valid question, very good question. And I just ask once again our municipal land use planner to come to the podium and answer your question, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again, and thank you for the question. Yes, it's a good question. So the R3 zoning would allow development of multiplexes or apartments. The parking requirements for those uses would be 2 parking stalls per dwelling for a multiplex, or 1.75 parking stalls per dwelling for an apartment. It depends on the number of bedrooms that are part of the development, from 1 stall for a 1-bedroom development up to 1.5 stalls for a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom development. These are parking stalls that would be required to be located on the property, so not street parking. If a developer is proposing a development that does not meet these minimum requirements, that would be considered a variance. And when we receive an application for a variance, circulation would be sent out to adjacent property owners again. Or they could potentially request to pay cash in lieu of providing that parking at $5,000 per stall that they are not providing. This cash is then used by the town generally to provide public parking stalls or lots in the vicinity. So since we have no development at this time, I can't really answer any detailed questions about what amount of parking would be required for this lot. It would depend on the development that is being proposed, but those are the minimum regulations.
Thank you. If you'd like to go to the podium once again.
So who owns this lot now?
Gail Williams will help you.
The town of Olds owns the lot, but if you were to look through Alberta land titles, it has not transferred yet. It would still be in the name of Habitat for Humanity for Central Alberta.
I see.
But the transfer agreement has been signed
I see.
from the Habitat to the town of Olds. It should be a couple more weeks.
I was under the impression that the Habitat still owned it, but they don't then. I see.
No.
So enforcing any of this parking would be on the onus of the town then?
Right. At the rezoning stage, we don't necessarily deal with parking. It's when the development stage kicks in. Like if you may have noticed the for sale sign on the lot right now, if that lot were to sell and someone submits a development permit for a duplex or quadplex, that's when we would hear from them of how many stalls they want to provide, and if it meets our guidelines, that works great.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, that's where we have to circulate the variance request to people like yourself who
I see.
live next door. And then if it is a variance over 15% right now, that's where we would essentially do this again in council chambers, and council will consider
I
that
see.
variance request.
So it could very well be up for sale for a long time. You don't have potential buyers there, so,
Correct, it has not been sold
yeah.
to anyone else, so it could be for sale for a while.
All right. So I'll just have to contend with that. It's been a continuous problem with parking there, but anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for spending your time to ask questions with council today. I will now open the floor to council members if you have questions. Seeing none, do you have any final comments, Mr. Sloan? Very good then. I will declare the public hearing closed at 1:10 p.m. I'd ask council members please to go back to page 9 of your agenda, and I'm looking for second reading, please. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that bylaw 2025, excuse me, -08 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried unanimously. And third and final reading, Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2025-08 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you once again for everyone, and thank you, sir, for coming today. You're welcome to stay for the meeting if you wish. Oh, we appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right. We're moving down now to page 14 of the agenda, please. And this is the Emergency Management EM Agency Annual Update and Appointments. And appointments will be on page 25. You'll find them on 25. Thank you. Welcome.
He needs more song and dance. No. Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. I'm Stephanie Bebo. I'm the Director of Emergency Management and Deputy Fire Chief for the Town of Olds. So in this update, we're going to share key accomplishments since a year ago, and highlight our ongoing challenges and present what our priorities are for Q1. For those of you who don't know why we have an emergency management program, is we're mandated by the province. Also, we're here to protect the people and property and prepare for anything that may happen in the town. And we do this in collaboration with our partners and everybody in the town. We all work together to make sure that we're all safe. So we've had a big year. Since last year, that time that I was here, we've initiated a public outreach program. We've talked to our nonprofit organizations and started creating those partnerships to make sure that everybody knows what their role and responsibilities could possibly be during a disaster scenario. We've hosted an ICS 300. We also have a 100 and 200 coming up. All of our firefighters are now Rail 100 and 101 and 201 qualified in preparation for our large-scale exercise that's coming up. We've trained drone operators for emergency reconnaissance and damage assessment if anything were to happen. We've conducted a municipal tabletop and facilitated 2 regional tabletops and participated in Jasper deployment, Olds Fire did. We've launched a regional multi-agency planning for our upcoming exercise, which is full scale, and we've started Voyant Alert rollout training. So Voyant Alert is a notification system for anybody who signs up. It gives you information for road closures or places to avoid, and if something does happen, where to go and who to talk to. Here's a plug. Please sign up for Voyant Alert. Takes 1 minute. So our key challenges in emergency management were staff capacity and time constraints. We all have primary jobs, so having this secondary duty does take time out of your workplace. Interagency coordination, there's a lot of moving parts in emergency management. Getting everybody to speak the same language and come together as a team can be challenging. Public awareness gaps. A lot of people don't know that we have an emergency management program, let alone knowing what they have to do in case of said emergencies. The system integration, we've got a lot of moving parts. We've got communication, so we've got Voyant Alert coming on. We also have municipal agencies working together. So it's all of those system integrations coming together and how they work together. And then plan alignment and documentation management. We've got a new emergency social services plan that's regional, sorry. We've got a new crisis communication plan, and we've got an updated ERP, emergency response plan. So all of these things, they're all new, they're all exciting, but it's the alignment that comes together with those. So looking ahead where we're at right now, we're working on Voyant, pushing it out, trying to get as many people to sign up for this as possible. We're working on getting all of our communications from the Facebook, from the social media, and putting it all to Voyant, and hopefully this is successful. We're finalizing our logistics for our June 5th full-scale train derailment exercise, so the public will see parts of that happening. That has everybody from CP Rail to all regional emergency management professionals we are going to involve the public at some point as well, so everybody's working together. We're working on communicating with the schools, the local schools, to work out an emergency preparedness outreach program. And we're continuing to build our relationships with everybody on our team, NGOs, municipal government, everybody. We're making sure that everybody's on the same page. We are looking to appoint a second deputy director of emergency management to strengthen our capacity. And we are running an ICS 100 this month and ICS 200 next month for all staff and partners. We passed with flying colors our annual AMA review. So we've given them everything that they need and then some. And you can see that on the page. And in summary, we've got a strong foundation. We're working well as a team. Our communication tools are out there. We're working on our outreach, making sure those relationships are built and maintained before we need them. We're continuing to focus on those interagency collaborations and public engagement, and we've got that full-scale exercise coming up in June. Any questions?
Thank you very much. They are separate requests for decisions for appointments and annual report updates. So we'll do the emergency management update questions first. Does council have questions? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dole. Through you to the Deputy Fire Chief. I was wondering if you could tell me what, for the logistics of the June 5th full-scale exercise, what role is, if any, will council play within that?
What kind of role would you like? You will be informed of the event because it's a municipal and we are going to be working mostly out of Didsbury. It's limited capacity. They are going to be working with the Mountain View County Council. They're going to act as displaced people during the emergency social services piece of it, which is what the exercise is focusing on. So if you'd like to play a part, you could be an actor as the displaced people, but if not, you will be aware of what's happening and you can be involved as much or as little as you'd like.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't aware that it was going to be running out of Didsbury or what the county council was, because if it was an emergency situation here in town, council would be automatically participating as we would come to the council chambers and be do whatever act we have to do according to our emergency response plan. And I was just wondering about that. So if it's not here in our town.
No,
What
it's not. It's a regional exercise,
Okay.
and it's south of town.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Ryan, Councillor Daly, and then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you to Deputy Fire Chief. It's in relationship to the Voidant app that you're activating, and is it up and running now?
It is currently up and running, and we're working on building our membership. So you can go on, you can download the Voyant app, and it says, show my location. It automatically pops up as Town of Olds. You push in your name, what you'd like to be alerted about, and you are on. That is it.
Excellent, excellent. Supplementary. So is it an app that is one-way communication, or can the public communicate back as well if they want to report an issue or a situation that's going on?
Less so of a two-way communication. The only two-way communication that you can have is we can say, if you're going to be going to the reception center, click here. You can. It's just very simple back and forth, but it's not a question and answer application.
Okay, good. I have one more, but let Councillor Wilson go first.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Councillor Daly, finish up, and then I'll go to Councillor
Okay,
Wilson.
and it has to do with Voidant as well. Is the app going to be used for your regional demonstration that happens down in Didsbury?
It would be a great test run, and I think that we could make that happen, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for your questions, Councillor Daly. Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you to the DEM. Just, again, I'm interested, intrigued by the June 5th event. I know planning's still underway, but your simulation, I assume, will try and approximate it as a real-life event as possible. So that will involve the hospital to some extent possible. Will that involve emergency locations, shelters, if people are displaced from their residences? Just wondering how far-reaching that would go. And can you talk a little bit as well about what the debrief would look like after an event like this? Thank you.
So the event's going to happen at the south elevator, the Pioneer elevator. So they're bringing a trailer that actually has a train, and it's going to simulate. So as far as the exercise, the firefighters are going to respond, and we're going to alert all personnel around. From there, the displaced people are going to be told where to go. So they're going to be going to the Didsbury they're going to be going to the Didsbury Arena, and we're setting up a reception area there. The debrief will be responders and participants, so there's going to be a two-stage debrief, and what went well, what could have been better.
Thank you very much. Councillor Blatz, and then back to Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you to Deputy Fire Chief. So going back to Voyant then, so that will alert us to whatever emergencies there are, but going further along with what Councillor Daly asked, then if there is an emergency, that's when people will just dial 911, and that needs to be encouraged to our residents that it's only notification of emergency or preparedness that our citizens should be aware of, and yet if they have an emergency, they still need to call 911.
Absolutely. If you
Perfect.
have an emergency, please dial 911.
Thank you for that.
Very good. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. This is not Voyant related, so a different question altogether. Can you tell me, you're talking about challenges in staff capacity, and I would assume that, I'm going to assume, that you're talking about the staff, the town staff. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so here's my question. Could we alleviate some of the pressure on our staff by engaging some people in the community who may have qualifications to do those roles? Because that might help alleviate some of that pressure, and going forward, as our town grows, we might have even more people in the community that might have those type of skill set that could step in and do that role, and then we don't have to have staff members all the time to try to step in.
Absolutely. We're always looking for people with qualifications and a passion for emergency management. We do, at this time, have about a 25-75 split of external agency or external personnel and in-house personnel. So people who I've met who I think that would be great for the job, who have the qualifications and who have passion for it, have been placed into our team.
supplemental, Mayor.
Oh, go ahead, Councillor Ryan.
So I know that you have the ICS training coming up, and I'm not sure if it would be time-wise, whether it would fit or not, but maybe to advertise that and say any community members who may have some emergency background who are interested might want to join these courses, and I don't know if that's possible or not, but I just thought I would throw that out there as a possibility.
Thank you. We'll go over to Councillor Cummings, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a kind of an off-ball question here. You mentioned in your presentation that we're still looking for some new people to join up. And then you mentioned drones. I'm thinking, wow, drones and cameras and pictures and video. We're having this really neat exercise with this fancy contraption that rail company is providing that'll be realistic, hopefully. Has any thought been given to using the film that we can get from this in a marketing campaign, either as a recruiting for the fire department or recruiting for emergency response in general? And if so, is there any budget to do that sort of thing?
Our drone will be actively involved in this exercise, and we will be taking video, what that video is used for after that. We'll have a conversation about it, absolutely, but we will have footage, and we'll have it available for anybody who'd like to see.
Supplemental, and then Councillor Walsh.
Thanks. I know you and I are both very familiar with how the military does that. We take videos of every exercise we do, and they end up on a commercial somewhere at the movie theater or something like that. So I just think it's a really good opportunity for people to see the reality of those types of exercises and what your personnel do on a day-to-day that might be that hook to get in there. So I'm glad you guys are thinking of that conversation down the line. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Councillor Walsh.
No, I just want to comment on the emergency management plan. I kind of went through it quickly, but I did notice a quick scan, there are a lot of phone numbers and people have changed, especially in the churches and local organizations, and it's not up to date, so I'm just curious. I looked at all the phone numbers, and I think that would be a daunting task to go through all that and update it, but I just stopped counting at 5, so I just bring that to your attention.
Thank you. All of the major players and are confirmed very, very regularly. We'll make sure that the churches are up to date. The ERB.
Thank you for that comment, Councillor Walsh. Any further questions? All right, we'll entertain a motion for this request for a decision, please. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move the council accepts the emergency management update as presented for information.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Call the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And now on page 25 will be the emergency management appointment. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council appoint James Crozier, I've never come from pronouncing his name, to the position of Deputy Director of Emergency Management, DDM, for the town of Olds, effective May 12th, 2025.
Yes, thank you very much. And he's our Manager Planning and Infrastructure gentleman. Very good. I'll now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Council.
Very good. All right, we're moving down to page 26 now of your agenda, item 4B, and this is the Protective Services Quarterly Report. Director Andrew?
Thank you. Quarterly report for Protective Services. We'll start off with our fire statistics. First quarter, our general responses were fairly consistent. We did have a few ebbs and flows with our call volume being somewhat stable with what previous years have been. Of course, that's always subject to weather in the first quarter. If we get the snowfalls, then the events on the highway can change. But nothing outstanding there that was out of the ordinary for us. When we look at our numbers right now, our total, whatever the quick math is, roughly 86 calls, I think it is, for the first quarter. Things have changed dramatically since then. Just to give you perspective, that we're already at 168 as of today. So the call volume definitely has impact on us, and so I would say we'll speak to we're ahead of the average on that one. The average firefighters per incident of both urban and rural being 8. What that number tells me is that we traditionally have had some more larger scale events such as car accidents or fire events. We typically see this number, this average being low simply because false alarm calls and medical events where we use lower number of firefighters artificially brings that average down. Again, there's nothing to be concerned about there. It's healthy and our responses are more than adequate. And our training hours in Q1 for the members is around that 1,400, which is ironically the exact same as it was the year before. And that's typically because we're just going with our scheduled training, Wednesday night training sessions for that period of the time of year. So anyway, again, that's a lot of hours that are going into maintaining and learning skills of all of our firefighters. Excuse me, challenges and accomplishments. So one of the challenges is, again, I just alluded to that the call volume is up, and currently we're about a month ahead of where we should be in our 4-year average. So that does definitely play a part in our members' activities, just simply because we've got lots of things going on with recruit training and fire cadet programs, so there's definitely burden. When we have an event such as the wildfire in Sturgeon County that we've supplied assets to, you know, it just starts to stretch our people. So we're always cognizant of that. Fleet maintenance, this is a kind of a thing that comes up, and it's always the scary piece for us, is that we're seeing a few more major unforeseen repairs that are not due to a lack of regular maintenance or in anything that we could prevent. We're just starting to see our older apparatus in the fleet getting to the date and time where they start to have issues such as mostly around the emissions control, such as the diesel particulate filter. So late last year, we had to spend just shy of $20,000 to have the diesel particulate filter system modified on our one pumper truck because the parts were obsolete, so you couldn't even replace it with what you had. And so these are all government regulated things that cost us a lot of money, and the truck is non-operable if you don't. So this is the struggle that we have, and so we try to plan for it as best as we can, but unfortunately it's kind of a wait and see game. We are seeing some increased demands with all of the development permits and the process of looking to build large structures in town. It is playing a bit of a stress on fire inspection, so our inspector is actively engaged in that process with the building inspector and the development team, and so there's a lot of meetings going on with that, and there's only so much time to go around being a 0.5 position, so trying the best to meet everybody's demands as well as maintain our fire inspection program. So it's manageable at this point. It's just it is a stress. Accomplishments, we're wrapping up the fire cadet program for another year. Our fire cadets finish up with us at the end of May. We had a very successful program this year with introduction of some new fire cadets in the program, and we look to continue that in the fall. We're maintaining a nearly full roster of active members, so our operational cap is at 50 members, and I believe right now our current roster is at 44, but we have a group of recruits that are ready to graduate here the second week of June, and that will bring us up to, I think, 49 members, if I'm not mistaken. So we're doing very well with that. And the work that we've been doing on our drone study with the University of Alberta is seeing some progress, and we're collaborating with some other entities. In June, I'll be spending 3 days in Edmonton working with the university, the city of Edmonton, and Strathcona County to do some new training on expanding the scope, which was part of the study's progress, was to be able to fly a drone beyond visual line of sight. So that's exciting opportunity, which is brand new, and it'll be the first in Canada that we're aware of. Municipal enforcement, our Q1 statistics, pretty stable. And again, it's the time of year dependent. So looking at the numbers, there's a lot of incidents investigated by the officers, being 112. So that was up slightly from Q4. And our busiest days of the week, again, it's that midweek stuff that comes through. I don't know, Tuesday always seems to be the day that people like to complain. So I don't know if the thrill of the weekend wears off and by Tuesday you're ready to take notice of things. But anyway, again, it is the the time that's where we see the most number of complaints. Traffic-related incidents were somewhat lower, which was a nice thing to see, some positive behaviors and actions with enforcement initiatives. And again, community standards, again, in the wintertime, we don't see a lot of complaints come through simply with the unsightly premise and other kind of complaints that would typically be more prevalent in the spring, summer, fall months. And the animal-related incidents were lower, which was nice, as again, that we're still struggling with the circumstances around how to deal with animals, but people are being responsible pet owners, which is helpful to us. And then consistent time spent patrolling playground zones and school zones to ensure compliance with the speeds set out. And we're very fortunate that there's very, very few number of non-compliance issues found in the school playground zones around town. Complaints received by dispatch, these numbers here, now these numbers vary a little bit from the number above, and it's because sometimes these numbers are duplications of other reporting methods, but this is truly the number that comes right from Yellowhead Dispatch. And again, it's just a benchmark to show how many phone calls are being made specifically into the call center for our issues. The number of tickets that were issued Q1, so 26 bylaw, 27 provincial citations, and then 7 provincial traffic. So the difference between a provincial and a provincial traffic would be, so anything that needs to be elevated, so somebody may have been issued a bylaw ticket, and if they don't pay within the 21 days period as a voluntary payment, then it gets elevated to a provincial citation where if somebody wants to challenge that ticket in court, then that's the method that they have to take. So it doesn't mean that we had over 50 tickets in total issued. Those 27 tickets might be included in the initial 26, depending on how many instances people were looking for opportunity to challenge the ticket. Zone 2 in town, which is east of the tracks and south of Highway 27, was the busiest area of concern. Sometimes this does have an effect with college in session, that we do get some complaints in the area due to traffic and parking enforcement, such as college students parking in the swimming pool parking lot and things like that. Otherwise, nothing out of the ordinary there. Some of the challenges that we faced in the last quarter, again, the same thing with our prohibited vehicle situation that we encountered last year, is that there's lots of inquiry and questions about what's legal and what's not legal. And the ultimate issue that is still faced is, according to Alberta Transportation, they have a very vague list of what's illegal, but their willingness to prosecute or pursue anything is, again, a different matter. And so as a result, it leaves a lot of gray area and limbo as to what is technically allowed or not. And our stance on the matter has been that we're not actively pursuing these vehicles in question, because the reality is that they weren't willing to proceed with prosecution on what they had written initially. So until we get a clear direction, that's our stance. Balancing the community expectations around unsightly properties and the realities of enforcement. So this is one of those pieces where there's a lot of people that'll have concerns about what a property looks like or what constitutes unsightliness. And a prime example would be a concern of dandelions on a front grass is viewed as unsightly, but that doesn't meet the definition of what an unsightly property would be. So we spend a lot of time educating the public about what unsightliness is on a property and how that's affected. And again, these are pieces that we've been working around since the revision of our community standards bylaws and the other bylaws last year. So it makes a clear definition, and so it's just more of an education thing that will be ongoing. And then, of course, the last one is that short and long-term care of abandoned animals. Again, we haven't had too many issues with that. We do have random people occasionally coming with an animal saying, well, here, I found this dog, I want you to take it, and we have to kindly refuse that we don't have a place for it to be housed. But the reality is that of all of the drawbacks of social media, it is the one thing that does seem to work for us, is that by getting it out, the community Facebook pages that have lost and found animals seems to to serve a real purpose and is actually helping rehome a lot of these missing animals, so that's a good thing. And our accomplishments, joint operations with the RCMP, doing check stops in various locations. These are welcome. We've had some good statistics where we've had high numbers of vehicles checked in a random period of time and very few offenses, so that's a good measure for the town of Olds and the people driving within, and they'll continue. And the ongoing progress with unsightly issues in town and some of the long-standing properties that have been sitting idle for a while, and so we are making headway with that, and we should see some definitive action come in place here within the spring and summer months with some different properties, which is a good thing. And we've got a pretty good process worked out right now between our legal team and with the courts on making a move on properties that traditionally have been sitting idle due to whether, no desire to fix it up or to develop it or do anything. And so it does take time. It is a process, but it is working quite well. Quickly, emergency management. I think this is regurgitating a lot of things that Deputy Chief Bebeau mentioned, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. Yeah, I don't think anything was new on here, so you got it right from her mouth. Q2 for 2025 for the fire, we are actively engaged in a compensation review as part of our business planning. We're engaging other like-sized communities and municipalities, making sure that we're in line with what they're doing, or to make sure that there's no other opportunities that we can provide to our members on compensation, whether it be pay or benefits or perks of retention. We have recruit class 7 members graduating at the end of June, or the middle of June, I should say. We're hosting our vehicle extrication symposium again in the middle of June. Anticipate at least 100 firefighters for 3 days in the community to partake in some world-class training, and I'm sure they'll be frequenting our establishment in that time, which is a perk for the town. Municipal enforcement, we have hired our additional community peace officer, Warren Wright, and so he joined us last Thursday and is going through the process of obtaining appointment through the Solicitor General. So he's training right now and will be actively working as a bylaw officer in the interim. The implementation of the body-worn camera system, so that equipment we're still waiting for delivery of the officer cameras, and they should be here any week, they tell us, so we'll see those roll out very soon. And the participation of Emmy with the emergency management exercise in June will be there. And again, the same thing, I won't cover the emergency management stuff again because I think Stephanie covered that. So with that, I will gladly entertain any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you very much. It's very thorough, Director Andrew. I'll open the floor to council for questions for Director Andrew. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, not so much in this report, but in most of your other reports, you talk about the ticketing system at the judicial level. And I know that provincial criminal justice system renewal is happening right now. And my concern is that the province is stealing from Peter to pay Paul, weakening the system we employ for ticketing to strengthen the other system. I'm wondering if you're seeing that as you've talked before about cases are not even going to the court system, they're just dismissing them because they don't have the staff to process the ticketing at the courts. Do you feel that this is an area that we need to refocus our advocacy on your behalf to make sure that we can get these tickets processed more efficiently at the judicial level?
Yes, thanks for the question. So we haven't seen a substantial change from what we've experienced in the past. So yes, there are certainly ebbs and flows as to how many tickets we're seeing being rejected through the court process. And again, depending on the circumstance of the ticket, I mean, there's times where people are just more accepting of the consequence and they'll pay the ticket. And so then we don't know if the system's working or there's just nobody challenging the system. So that's, I think, kind of what we're in right now. But yes, I would absolutely be supportive of council advocating in that justice reform to work on a system where municipalities, because I think this is not just an Olds issue, this is across the board, is that municipality and municipal bylaw tickets are not a priority in the court system with the given resources that they have. And so until that changes, we're going to continue to experience those problems.
Yes, thank you. And I know, council, we had a great discussion with everyone together with that just a couple months ago, a working group. Councilor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to the director. I have, I think, a two-pronged question, I think, with a little bit of a comment embedded. Just wondering if the director could comment on fire risk assessment within the town. We don't have a huge, I don't think, exposure. Maybe not a relevant question based on today's weather conditions, but looking forward to July and August may become a little bit more pertinent. But if the director could comment a little bit on the fire risk hazard within the town, and just a little bit of background. So with the hospice hike, Councillor Blatz and I were sprinting through the urban forest there, noticed a lot of deadfall, windfall, and tinder-like conditions. I've had a resident ask me, just south of the town as you're exiting on 57th Avenue, we have a little bit of a wooded area, grassland area, with not much of a buffer from that grass area to the last of the housing development on the town on the southwest side. So just wondering if the director could comment on what our risk assessment is, what do we do to prepare for an event in that case? And is there anything council should be looking at forward-looking, maybe around an appropriation within future budgets to assist with cleaning up certain areas? Because I know there are pockets throughout the town. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a good question for sure, and we do get asked from time to time about that. The fire risk in the town of Olds inherently is very low for what you consider a urban interface fire. So that's where you have a fire that would start in a rural location and then impart upon town through various means, whether it's trees or river valleys or things like that. And so because we're primarily surrounded by grass and or agricultural fields, the fire risk is pretty low. Even though, you know, a fire in a field or in grass can be serious, it doesn't typically have the fuel load behind it to carry enough potential where it's going to light a lot of structures on fire. The other thing that lowers our risk is with a municipal fire department here and quick response times and access to municipal water supply. It would have to be one heck of a fire for it to get away from us, where, you know, you'd have structures threatened to the point where, you know, it would get into a community that couldn't be managed. So there are relative perks for us living in a flat area that's not surrounded by trees, but we do have access to good water supply quickly. So in our areas specifically, like the tree reserve, that question is asked as well. And so yes, there is a growing amount of deadfall in that area. And we are currently working with the Parks Department to talk about a mitigation strategy to remove some of that deadfall out of that area. But we do spend time in there. We've been in there several times this spring already looking at it. And the type of trees lends that area to be relatively low risk because of them being leaf-bearing trees. They don't burn as readily, or they don't, if there was a fire there, it wouldn't get up into the canopy like it would be in a deciduous forest, such as, you know, pine or spruce trees. So the risk of the fire spreading to houses is relatively minimal. The other thing is that we have access to, again, municipal water in close proximity, and we have a response time that's very quick. So unless there was a very deliberate fire set in that location using large quantities of fuel, we're very confident that we could mitigate that quickly without it ever threatening somebody's home. Again, that doesn't mean that we're not going to take action. We do need to work on it, but it does take some time and resources. We did have some planned burns to go on in that forest area this spring, and unfortunately every time that we thought we were ready to go, we got a freak snowstorm, and that canceled it the first time. And then when we have high winds, it also cancels it. And it's very risky business conducting backburn exercises to reduce that risk, and we don't want to take the risk that now we burn somebody's house down when we're trying to mitigate the risk. So it's, and it's one of those things as well, is that I'm sure that residents wouldn't appreciate that we go in there and light a fire and all of your windows are open and now your house is full of smoke either. So it's a delicate game, and we do aim to deal with it for sure. And, you know, if we get the opportunity now with the rain today, I'm pretty sure we've lost our window for any burn training to do that this year, because it'll turn green in about 4 minutes after the rain stops. But it doesn't mean that we won't continue to do the work of removing the deadfall in that area, and then possibly do a burn in the fall time again. So hopefully that answers your question for you.
Councillor Daly, and then Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Through you to Director Andrews. If I bring your attention to page 30 and we look at the community standards incidents on there, they're up slightly. And then you also mentioned in your presentation that some of these comments, what you referred to, like a lawn full of dandelions being reported as an unsightly yard. Is there anything as far as what you would put out there as advice to citizens that may mitigate some of these calls? Like what constitutes an unsightly yard? What is the, I guess, the trigger that your officers would look at to determine whether it was unsightly or not?
Yeah, you know, and again, some of these incidents that come up is people will call in and they'll engage our officers and have a conversation about what they feel is unsightly. And so there's times when they don't actually even investigate the incident simply because they can determine what it is based on that conversation. But yes, I think one of the pieces that we'd love to be able to do is to get out more now with our additional officer, is have better one-on-one interactions with citizens, talking about what that looks like, visiting people and being able to actually explain it in person. But we also want to use various communication methods, you know, whether it's, you know, social media or in the town newsletter, whatever, to put out some kind of tidbits of that information about, hey, dandelions aren't considered unsightly. They're also not considered a noxious weed, because that's the other misconception, is that people feel that dandelions are a noxious weed, which they are not. So, so yeah, it's a continued work. The other piece, just to go back to your comment about the community standards incidents, is one number why that could be a little higher, or is higher, I do know that, is that we actually have the RCMP officers actively issuing Town of Old's bylaw tickets to people that they encounter as well. And so they're doing that as a tool to, you know, work on enforcement. And so when they see people doing poor things, like an example I could give you is if you have somebody, you know, wouldn't be vandalizing, but, you know, causing mischief in different areas or doing things, they may issue them a bylaw ticket for such. And the benefit of a bylaw ticket is it's a low fine, you know, it's typically $81. Doesn't carry demerits or, you know, court time or anything like that. But it's a, you know, it's basically a slap on the wrist saying, we caught you doing something you shouldn't, and I'm giving you an out by not giving you a provincial citation for it. And so those have been effectively used quite regularly and frequently by our local RCMP as well, which is a great thing, because those tickets go directly to us for revenue that doesn't share with the province or anything. So hopefully we'll see those numbers continue to stay high as well.
Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. My question was similar to Councillor Daly's thing.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Merdell. Perfect, then more time for myself. No, I have a very brief comment. I have a very brief comment and a question, if I can remember it now. Oh, yeah. My comment is, with our additional resource on the ME side, and I'm not certainly telling you how to do your job, but I do get occasional feedback about traffic and speed on Winter Drive, particularly in the mornings as people are going to work and shuttling kids to the school, and then obviously in the evening. So I just plant that seed with you. And my question is, we had the mobile speed sign on 54th Street. Are you able to share in the future any information? I believe those things are chip contained. Will you be able to share some information from that in the future?
Yes, absolutely. So we did have both the signs on 54th Street and 57th Avenue for about a month. And I struggle to remember the exact detail, but basically in both of those locations, the percentage of people actually operating within a range that a ticket would even be considered was like less than 1% of all motorists captured on the device. So very, very low numbers of people actually exceeding the speed limit in a substantial manner as captured by those signs. That's the caveat, of course. But I will say that yes, the nice thing is that we've got the two mobile signs. They are mounted to the street lights. They have been moved, and so we're quite happy to move it back to Winter Drive. Anytime that any citizen has a concern about a specific area, part of our plan would be to actually engage those signs in that location simply because they are mobile, so that we can give some raw data and leave them there over a period to come back, because essentially the data that comes out of them is somewhat irrefutable because it's all there. It gives you the time of the day, the number of vehicles, the speed, the averages, pretty much any information you could want. So we're happy for the feedback, and yes, I can definitely provide you the details through the CAO for both those previous locations.
Well, thank you, Director Andrew. You've answered quite a few questions from council today. I appreciate your time. I would ask council please to entertain a motion. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Doll. I move the council accepts the Protective Services first quarter report as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Those in favor? That's carried. Very well. We will now move down to bylaws, page 53, item 5. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Corporate Services Quarterly Report. I marked it off. You're lucky. Page 34, Corporate Services Quarterly Report. Go ahead, Director Linderman.
Thank you. I know we're not quite as exciting as Protective Services, but, all right, so next slide, we have our Corporate Services Overview, which you'll notice has changed a little bit since last year. We have now integrated People and Information Services into Corporate Services. So that being said, Corporate Services now has two core functions, which are finance and then the newly developed department, which is now called People and Information Services. This department includes the functions of human resources, payroll, and information technology. A few of our key corporate services projects that were completed or advanced in the first quarter of 2025 include our AP automation. So we've successfully implemented the accounts payable automation software. We did our full rollout on April 28th with all staff trained and the system fully integrated with our financial software. This platform is expected to improve processing efficiency, reduce manual data entry, and strengthen our internal controls. It was a very smooth implementation. We had excellent participation and support from all staff across the organization. Our audit 2024 is complete. As council knows, we approved the statements on April 28th. It was a smooth process. We had no significant issues or control deficiencies identified. And I would like to take this time to acknowledge our entire corporate services team for all their work during this time. It is a tremendous amount of work that is prepared in a relatively short amount of time. And then the third thing on there is, again, the integration of our People and Information Services. In January, we welcomed them to the corporate services team coming from the Office of the CAO. This is a part of a broader effort to streamline our administrative processes, improve our employee experience, and strengthen the alignment across our departments. The transition has gone very well to date, and I will just note in our performance indicators that are coming up, I have not included any People and Information Services, but this will be coming in your next update for Q2. So moving on to those performance indicators, our first one is our finance department. You'll notice our tax base. This is the split between residential and non-residential. It, for 2024, was at 78-22. This is a fairly substantial drop from previous years, and this would be down to the sundial closure being recognized in 2024. The tax collection rate, this is the percentage of property taxes collected in the year. And so as you can see, in 2024, we are at 96%. Again, this is slightly less than 2023, but still well within a healthy range. The percent of debt limit used, we hit our peak back in 2020 and have been steadily decreasing since ending at 2024 with a 65% utilization. And then the last thing I'll comment on is the restricted reserves. These have continued to decline each year. As council is aware, this reflects our strategic focus on core infrastructure and equipment replacement, which has required the use of reserves without the opportunity to replenish them. The long-term financial plan, which will be coming later in the year, will address this trend and help guide us toward a more sustainable fiscal path. Moving on to our property taxes and utilities. Indicative of the tax collection rate from the previous slide, our taxes receivable has increased from 2024 to 2025. Again, nothing that I would be concerned about at this time. Our pre-authorized payment plans for both utilities and taxes has increased from 2024. The big highlight, as has been mentioned many times before, is our large increase in our utilities e-billing, which has increased 9% year over year. And then we have our meter metrics down at the bottom of the slide. Our no reads have decreased year over year, with 48 identified, 26 have been resolved. And then our zero reads, there were 273, and this is just the first quarter of the month, or of the year. 261 of them have been resolved since that time. Grants, we have submitted 7 grants. We're successful on 4. These grants that we were successful on were submitted back in 2024 and have a value of $418,140. These values do not include our standing grants that we receive every year, such as LGFF and our CCBF. Moving on to procurement, we have put out 8 RFPs this year and awarded 4. We still have 4 sitting open. And then moving to our financial statements, as council is aware, our 2025 approved operating budget is $36,391,042. At 25% of the way through the year, we have $3.4 million in revenue that has been recognized, which is 9% of budget. This will increase substantially in Q2 when we send out taxes. $6.3 million has been spent to date, which is 17% of budget. And then moving on to our utilities operating summary. The highlight on this slide is our water loss and I&I. As you can see, 2025, both these numbers reflect January through March. We are $138,000 less in the 3-month period of 2025. And our capital summary, we have 31 total projects this year, totaling $6,256,065. 10 of these projects are in progress, 14 have been completed already, and 7 have not been started. And then our council remuneration update. Overall, all of council is tracking where you should be for this time of year. As you can see, at 25% of the year, you have spent 25%, so tracking right on. There is a more detailed version of this that will be posted to our website with the financial statements. And then looking ahead at 2025, we have a few key projects happening. Our draft long-term financial plan, which will include financial forecasting, some policy development, and integration within our budgeting. We continue our records digitization project. As I mentioned, our accounts payable automation with purchase orders has already been implemented, but we are still working on the implementation of the document management system. We'll also be working on capital planning documents that will be linked to our asset management, so this will be life cycle costing for all of our capital assets. Continuing with the amalgamation of our people and information services, and then establishing customer service standards. And with that, I would open up to any questions.
Well, thank you, Director Linderman. Does council have questions? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Through you, probably to CO Williams, and I'm sorry I missed this. I got a little distracted for a moment, but the water meter no reads, and water zero reads, exactly what is the difference between those two? And it seems to me that we've gone up significantly with the zero reads. And are those the types of meters we will be targeting for meter replacement right away, or what? Oh, okay. Sorry, if you did say that, Sheena, I apologize.
No, that's, sorry, I did not go over it this time. So the no reads is typically our meters that are just not reading, period. So there's an issue with the meter or the MXU that's attached to the house. And so that number has actually decreased year over year, which is good. That means that we're fixing these meters, we're getting new ones in place. The zero reads is when you literally have no consumption that has been registered through your house. So typically that's your snowbirds or whatever. So a lot of these are resolved just through phone calls. And then if we can't figure it out, like say the homeowners have been home the entire time, that's when we go and investigate. But yeah, there is no way to kind of understand why zero reads have increased. But along with that increase, so has the completed and resolved. So
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Further questions? Did you have your hand up? Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to the director, just quick and I think an obvious question. So as far as the $500,000 in the tax receivable, we have, I assume, an escalation collection process that starts with a very gentle, polite letter and escalates from there. Thank you.
correct. We are always gentle and polite, but yes, so we start obviously with, we send tax statements monthly. We start the tax recovery process after 2 years. You start on the tax recovery process, which starts again with letters and polite nudges, and then getting into the legislative process after that.
Councillor Cummings and then Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not a question, just a comment. I'm looking through the report that you presented today, and I see a couple of numbers I'm happy with, seeing that our plan is working a little bit here. The debt limit availability and the debt servicing limit changes are awesome. I think we've been focusing on those issues for a long time now. They were very concerning when we took office, and I see some great improvements there. Also with the water loss changes, we've put a lot of money into fixing our infrastructure, hiring the right people and making sure the equipment's there. So I'm happy to see that those numbers are also decreasing in this case. So hopefully we can keep on the trend and get those fundamental financial and structural things fixed. Thanks.
Councillor Daly and then Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and this might be due to my ignorance, but going back to page 41 and contracts awarded in the first quarter, we hear quite a bit from local equipment owners and businesses in town about the need for the town of Olds to utilize their services in awarding contracts and so forth and keeping things local. And there was a couple of items on the contracts awarded that I wasn't aware of, and maybe just a brief explanation. Operations fleet replacement and mowing. I'm a little surprised to see that on the list. I was just wondering if you could comment on those, any as far as what they entail and if we're going to see a business case after we've finished with this or not, or I'll leave it up to you.
Sure. So the fleet replacement is our fleet replacement program, which was approved in the capital budget to pickup trucks. That's what that is. And then the mowing was brought to council through service level discussions, and that is a contracted mowing just of certain areas in town that it wasn't efficient for our parks department to be doing. So this creates more efficiency.
Okay, thank you. Yep, I figured I probably missed it.
Thank you for the question. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, through you to Director Lindeman. I was just wondering when we talk about the grants, and we've got 4 successful, I was wondering if we could get a report, whenever you do your quarterly reports, to say which ones are the grants for success, because $400,000 is nothing to sneeze at. I'd love to be able to say to people, I mean, we around the council chambers may know most of them, but whether our public is well aware of it, I'm not exactly sure. And it'd be nice to just list them off in the future if we could do that and saying where we got them. And my question out of this, though, is Bill 50, and with regards to having to report now to the province on when we any kind of grant towards, that is federal government related. Would a lot of our grants be under that $100,000 threshold, or are we looking at majority between the $100,000 to $500,000 threshold? I don't think we have a lot that we're asking the federal government over the $1 million, in the millions, but maybe you could tell, oh, I guess it's not 500,000, it's 5 million, sorry. So we probably wouldn't have very many that would have to go through cabinet, but there might be some that are over that 100, I believe it's 100,000 is the lowest threshold, so.
Correct, and yeah, it just creates that extra layer of red tape that we have to go through.
Yeah, and is that going to slow down our process, or do you see any kind of difficulties with regards to applying in the future?
No, I don't see difficulties. For the amount of grants that we have, it's not substantial, but it is just that extra layer of something to do, yeah. And your previous question, though, with the actual grants successful, I will in the future have a spot on here for that, but I can run through the 4 quick if you would like. We have the Heritage Canada grant, which is a Canada Day grant for $5,000. GICB, which was a men's shed, just under $200,000. The ACP, which is our Recreation 2 strategy, $200,000, and the Fire Services grant for $13,000.
Thank you, Director Lindeman and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Very short question and probably even a shorter answer. And probably not a question I'll ask just about every time. I know it's only 4 months into the year. You're not seeing any unfavorable trending right now, particularly on the op cost side. Again, I know it's only 4 months, but nothing that would signal maybe an amber light and or a potential intervention such as reducing council salaries in the future, anything like that. We're pretty. Thank you.
Since you brought it up. No, at this point, and it is so difficult at 3 months in, right, to do that, but on Schedule 3, I don't know what page it is in here, it does go through department by department and gives you spent and revenues received, and there's nothing on there that isn't explainable or would cause us any sort of red flag.
And back to Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Through you to probably the CAO, actually, and this question would be on page 43 when we talk about the water and wastewater, and Councillor Cummings already alluded to it, but, you know, awesome to see this change, reduction, and I just wanted to know if this was because of the mitigating efforts that we're doing, or is it weather-related? I don't want to get our hopes up too quick.
No, please do. So in fact, it's almost 100% through the mitigating work that we've been doing the last 2 years. In fact, April 2024 to April 2025, you'll see this. I'm assuming in Director Pedro's next quarterly update, April 2025 was a wetter year than April 2024. And we are seeing less I&I infiltration in 2025. So it certainly is working. The percentages don't tell the whole story. I think cubic volumes and dollar loss are probably more pertinent, but we use percentages just a bit trickier of a situation for us to figure out because there's certainly some infrastructure issues mixed in with some metering issues, we believe, but we're trending in the right direction. It's just how fast can we eat away at that 2 million plus loss. It'll take a few more years, but no, this is certainly through the good work that the infrastructure division has been doing.
For that.
Well, thank you very much for all your questions and answers. And I'd entertain a motion, please. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council accepts the Corporate Services Quarterly Report as presented for information.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'll call for the vote, please. Those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Moving down now to page 53 of your agenda, bylaws. 5A, bylaw 2025-10. Considerations will be given for all readings, and we'll welcome Development Officer Nathan Hill to the podium.
Awesome. Thank you, Council. I'm bringing a proposed bylaw amendment to you this afternoon. I'm eliminating 2 points out of the mobile vendor bylaw. Every year, this time of year, we get a lot of applications in, and so this is excuse me, this is my first opportunity to really have a look at it and see how it works in operation. I'm proposing how we take out section 311 of the mobile vendor bylaw. That states that a mobile vendor can't be within 100 meters of a business that offers a similar product, good, or service. In our opinion, this is an excuse me, an unnecessary regulation. We don't impose it on any other type of business, and a mobile vendor always has to have approval out of a landowner that they're basing off of. And I'm also proposing we take out section 311, excuse me, 312, because in my opinion it's ambiguous and vague and just not useful. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Hill. I'll ask council if they have any questions to this bylaw. We're good to move forward, so we're going to start for first, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'm not sure if it's a question through to Mr. Hill or just a comment, but with 311, what gives me some pause for concern, and I understand the request to remove that restriction, but when I look at it, you've got a bricks and mortar business that's paying property tax, right, and incurring various infrastructure costs with the business, as compared to a mobile vendor that's going to wheel up in their van, truck, or whatever, and start doing business. So it's just something that I'm trying to weigh in my mind, the pro and con there, and the impact to a business that we are assessing property tax with and various other costs relative to the infrastructure, water, and everything. Do you have any thoughts on that, or am I totally off base? Thank you.
I would say that, as a rule, I don't take property taxes into consideration in any of the decisions that I make. So that's not a consideration that I look at.
Thank you for your response, and Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I too had that kind of concern that in the back of my mind that was probably the reason why it was put in the bylaw in the first place, was because we do have these bricks and mortar businesses, and they do pay property taxes. However, I think when I read through the document, it does explain that they couldn't possibly go on the same property anyway without permission. So it's not like they could pull up in front of a fast food outlet and be in their parking lot selling the same type of food without having the permission of that company. So I think it kind of, and what you'd said earlier, Mr. Hill, was that it kind of mitigates the need for having these two sections in there just because of that. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
That would be my understanding as a rule. What we encounter a lot with this provision as a rule is businesses mobile vendors having to locate 105 meters away instead of just on the grounds of it, as an example, ORE or the arena, and in our opinion, them having to have permission from a landowner that they're basing it on will mitigate that risk. So.
Thank you for that answer. All right, if I don't see no further questions, I would ask for first reading. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2025-10 be given first reading as presented.
Thank you. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's unanimous. Councillor Walsh for second reading.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that bylaw number 2025-10 be given second reading as presented.
We have second reading on the floor. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried unanimously, and we're looking for consent for third reading. Councillor Blatz?
I move that unanimous consent be given to for the third reading of bylaw number 2025-10 to be considered.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And third and final reading, please. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw number 2025-10 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Hill. We will then move down to 5B, page 68, and this is bylaw 2025-11 land use bylaw. And welcome back, our municipal land use planner, Mr. Sloan.
Thank you again. Bylaw number 2025-11 proposes to rezone 2 parcels of land in the southeast industrial area from Direct Control 7, which is the direct control district specifically pertaining to cannabis production, to the light industrial district, I-1. This aligns with the southeast industrial area structure plan, and the bylaw also proposes to add a new definition to the land use bylaw for a data center. This is a use that would not have been considered when the bylaw was written in 2001. So we're just updating the defined uses that we have to adapt to current development trends. The recommendation is that bylaw 2025-11 be given first reading as presented, and that Monday, June 9th, 2025 at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on this bylaw.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cummings?
Thanks. Just a curiosity, if you look at the map on page 69, I'm assuming the 2 parcels are the northern part, the southern part, and the way I see the lines that are drawn in there, there's a section, a void section in between the 2 parcels. Is that a road?
Yes, good eye. That is a road right-of-way. A road was never developed there. So that area is, well, it is a road right-of-way. It also has the DC7 zoning right now. So there's no reason to leave that direct control zone for the road right-of-way itself. So it is not private property. It is public right-of-way, just not developed.
Thank you. That's a very good question. Thank you for your answer. I see no further. Is that a question, Councillor Ryan? All right. I would then please ask for first reading.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw number 2025-11, the amendment to land use bylaw 01-23, be given first readings as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I will now call the vote for first reading. Those in favor? That is carried unanimously, and for a public hearing date. Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Monday, June 9th, 2025, at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as a date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw number 2025-11.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Once again, thank you, Mr. Sloan. We are moving down to the business portion of our agenda at this time. Page 72, item 6A. This is Mount View Power sponsorship, Oldstoberfest request. And C.O. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So this is now a recurring request in front of council for a number of years now. Since I believe 2019, the town has been sponsoring Oldstoberfest, which is the flagship rodeo for town, and this will now be the 3rd year that Mountain View Power has taken on or propose to take on this primary sponsorship of this event. So as last year, the recommendation, or the request and recommendation is a $10,000 sponsorship from Mountain View Power to support the 2025 Oldstoberfest. This, if should council approve it, that would drop the available MVP sponsorship to $2,500. And there is an information package that C5 passed along, which you would have saw in the fall when Miss Grant presented something similar on the 2024 event. But happy to take any questions on this, if there is any.
Thank you, CEO Williams. Do you have questions for our CEO? All right, seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion. Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approve sponsorship in the amount of $10,000 to 2025 Oktoberfest through the Mount View Power sponsorship budget.
Oldstoberfest 2025. Thank you very much, Councillor Daly. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. I draw your attention to page 79, please, in your agenda, page 79. And that's Committee of the Whole Policy Recommendations. And who will be speaking to these? CEO Williams?
Yeah, these are all under corporate services, so Sheena will take these on.
So all of these items were presented last week at the Committee of the Whole, and no changes were made besides in the rescindment of policy 210C. We're putting in an effective date of July 21st.
Very good and well presented. We will work through 3 separate motions, and I'd start with motion 1. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council approves policy 211C, investments as presented.
Does council have any questions? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried unanimously. And motion 2, please. Councillor Blatt.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approves policy 202C, tangible capital assets, policy 204C, incident management, and policy 213C, signing authority, as presented with no material changes being recommended.
That's very good. The motion is on the floor. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And the final motion, please. Councillor Cumming.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council rescind policy 210C, administration building access, effective July 21st, 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, council members. Now, if you can please pay attention to page 96 of your agenda, that we will now have our Chief Administrative Officer report, CEO Williams.
Thank you again. So to start with what's on the screen, the report of problems for end of April, year to date. You can see we are on a slight upward trend in terms of the problems reported, and I think more so the utilization of the report of problem system, which even though we're getting more complaints, that in my opinion is actually a good thing, as people are taking the time to utilize the system, and it seems to be working quite well, certainly from our back end and operationalizing those issues that come in. In the pie chart, lower half of the page, you can see that parks overtook roads for a change in terms of our larger complaints. So generally this time of year, sports fields and the either the not yet opening or the conditions take flight, but this time was also a small uptick due to doggy waste bags, which council may have heard from. So as council was made aware, and corresponding social media posts, the town spends approximately $20,000 annually on dog waste bags at what was up to 35 receptacles. For context, that's about how much we collect in animal licensing fees, around the $20,000 to $25,000. And that's before we take into consideration the costs incurred through animal enforcement through municipal enforcement, or certainly the costs incurred owning and operating the dog park west of town. So the decision was made administratively to reduce that number by about half to 16 dog waste stations, which based on our research was still, I believe, at or one more than the city of Lacombe, a community of about a third larger than ours. So even though it caused a bit of controversy, it is noted that those stations are only there for, dare I say, emergency uses, that pet owners are still encouraged to have their own waste bags and utilize those accordingly. And of course, if you're caught in a pinch, use the town bags as needed. But we do believe one was relocate to Rotary Park, I should mention, but the ones that were removed, we do feel there's still a robust coverage in our trail system and some boulevards. Scrolling down to the action item list, just nothing much change from here. Still the notice of motion that we are working on the animal shelter topic from Councillor Wilson, due by the end of June. And verbally, this time last week, on Monday, May 5th, we did host the Housing Strategy Open House, which was on the heels of the survey, Housing Needs Assessment Survey, which had nearly 400 responses, our consultant's quantitative analysis, and happy to report the open house even only had, I believe, around a couple dozen attendees over both sessions, but from what my staff are reporting back, and council can correct me if I'm wrong, people were at least interested and engaged in what we are trying to do, and there was a general sense that something has to be done about housing, and certainly people have different opinions on what that could be. Even more importantly, people seemed willing to engage in the next step. So after the housing strategy is finalized, we're just waiting on the final needs assessment report from the consultant, which will combine the survey data with the quantitative analysis data, which council has seen both of, into a final needs assessment report. We will finalize the housing strategy draft and bring it to council for full consideration in early June, we're projecting. And the larger next step is the land use bylaw review, which will kick off in earnest in June, and that is the fundamental actioning of how you build more housing in any community through that provincially legislated municipal bylaw. And just a couple quick updates on the infrastructure side of things. Usually hot topics this time of year. The street sweeping has officially been completed in very solid time. Of course, throughout the year, we do spot street sweeping in Uptown and along 54th Street, for example, but the bulk of it has been done. Spray patching has begun and is ongoing. Spray patching is the little rock chips that you will see the contractors spraying into cracks on main boulevards. We expect that to take most of this month and into June. Manhole relining will begin soon. You'll see people parked with a very odd-looking machine at various manholes throughout town for the rest of the summer. That is key to our inflow and infiltration program. And the concrete program will commence when the weather gets a bit hotter, hopefully by mid-June at the latest. And the asphalt batch plant that we purchased from was supposed to open today. I'm going to take a wild guess and say it did not open today, but we expect our asphalt program to kick off, if not by later this week, then certainly next, and test out that fancy new equipment that council saw so fit to buy for us. So with that, happy to take any questions, comments, or concerns.
My council does not have any questions for you. You were very thorough. Thank you very much, CEO Williams. In that case, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Chief Administrative Officer report be accepted for information.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, page 99 is our last item on our agenda. This draft motion for council consideration was brought to council at our regular council meeting on April 28th and is here today. I'll pass this over to Councillor Cummings if you'd like to speak to this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this motion that I presented last meeting, like the Mayor said, as a notice of motion, is one that directs the administration to provide a policy stating that ASPs and ARPs should be reviewed every 10 years. I included a couple pages of facts and concepts of why I believe that that's an important function that needs to be done. This all stemmed from a decision council made with regards to a development permit for the East Olds community that was kind of in contradiction to the area structure plan. And the reason why it happened that way in my mind is that the area structure plan is most likely no longer relevant to today's needs and concerns. It's an older plan. It's not even by far, even remotely, the oldest plan that we have. And after some more consultation with the plans that we do have is quite revealing that most of our plans are very, very old and may not be relevant to the needs of our community, the needs of the residents that have changed in that community, especially in the East Olds residential area where so many new residents are from when those residents created the plan. So it was all summed up in the conclusion on page 101, so I'm just going to read that into the record and then ask if, put the motion on the floor. So the 10-year review policy for ASPs and ARPs will help keep the town of Olds planning documents relevant and useful, ensuring they reflect both the community's long-term vision and its current and emerging realities. It is a proactive, low-cost way to support orderly, responsive, and transparent land use planning. So what I envision happening here is I'll put the motion on the floor today. It does specifically call for administration to bring it back to the committee of the whole meeting on June the 2nd, where we would hopefully have a good, robust discussion on the policy proposed, and we could debate on whether or not it's suitable or any changes that need to be made, and then have it brought back to a council meeting after that for a decision. So if there's any questions on what I presented here in the 2 or 3 pages that I presented, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I was just listening and I see I've got some hands up. So Councillor Blatz and then Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you to Councillor Cummings. Again, Councillor Cummings, I want to thank you for this. I thought that it was a very good notice of motion, and I was impressed when I did see it come forward. However, I do have one question for you, and I noted that you do want it to come back to the June 2025 meeting. Would you be receptive to maybe pushing that back to July, just to give administration a little more time to perhaps get some information together, being that we're already at May, 12th today? So that's really only 2 weeks. So that would be my only question, if you'd be receptive to that. Otherwise, I think that this is a great notice of motion, and I fully support it.
Yeah, I would be supportive of the timeline change if administration feels they need that extra little bit. I'm actually not going to be here June the 2nd. I'm still in Ottawa at FCM on that day. So to me, it would work if that's okay with everybody else, just a little straw poll sort of thing.
We'll change that date then to July 7th. Committee of the Whole, July 7th. Very good. And Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. And actually, I had a similar comment with which Councillor Blatz just raised. And I'm glad that we're moving that to July 7th, because I just think 2 weeks wasn't enough time. But I do have one question, and I actually did look through this quite extensively, and I do want to thank Councillor Cummings for putting this together. It does seem to me that it should have been something that we should have done a long time ago, and we have so many other things that come on our plate. Sometimes these things go to the side of the desk or our desk as councillors, and we don't think about them, and then all of a sudden we have to deal with changes, and something's not up to date, and I think we need to do this. So I think I would support this notice of motion for sure. I just have one comment on page 102, just at the very bottom, and Councillor Cummings, I just wanted to get your thoughts on, you're saying the policy itself will be reviewed every 5 years. I would like to see that a slight change and just ask for it to be reviewed in every council term, every new council term, simply because all of our other policies are supposed to be done that way, and this would just be consistent in how we're dealing with our policies, that they would come to every term and be done.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So that whole last page is just a draft idea of what I think the policy ought to look like. Administration will develop the policy itself and bring it forward, and I'm sure they would have caught that as well. Thanks, I just threw 5 years in there, 4 years as per our policy of reviewing policies, our policy on reviewing policies. Exactly. That would, I'm sure administration would come back with the proper wording and necessary changes to that section. So it doesn't affect our motion today, but it would definitely be in the policy that administration would bring forward.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I mean, we just want to be consistent and going along with our policy already in place. And certainly, I do agree that this is something that needs to be done.
I concur. It's very well written, and council will, once this, whether council accepts this on the floor today, have another opportunity to speak to it. So, Councillor Walsh?
Yeah, I support the motion, but I do have questions, especially on scope of review. It basically says, yeah, does the plan remain valid? Learning through the East Olds redevelopment plan, people who invest in a residence, especially when they were talking of restoring historic residences, that's a 20 to 30 year plan for them. It's sunk costs. They're not going to get that money back. So that was one of the considerations when we were looking at that from the residents. And given the nature of that area, at that time it was around 42% absentee landlords, 50-some% residents. So they wanted that balance, so they were investing in this community. They wanted assurances that it wasn't going to change quickly. And assurances that it may change quickly in 10 years is not long enough. I have no problem reviewing it, you know, vis-a-vis the municipal development plan and little changes there. But a total revamp in 10 years would not work in that case. So those are my concerns when we talk about scope of review.
Well, thank you for once again sharing that. And again, today we're going to put the motion on the floor, excuse me, for administration to bring back on July 7th, and we'll be able to have that opportunity to speak further. Councillor Cummings?
Thanks, and Harvey, that's a great concern. I actually addressed that on page 102, where I said some plans may need changes, other may still be good as they are, and reviews will help councils decide that. So what we're asking for isn't let's do a whole new ASP every 10 years. It's let's look at the ASP and see if it's still relevant, if it's or relevant in parts and not in other parts, so that we can change it as it goes. More of a living document type design, rather than a here, let's keep it this way for 25 years, even though all the residents in that community have changed. I'll use my neighborhood as an example. My neighborhood was built in 1975 to 1985. Most of the residents that were original residents of that community have passed on or moved away, and now new younger families are moving in, and that changes the dynamic of the community in its entirety. I think we saw that during the open house on that one development permit in the East Olds area, that maybe the East Olds community's changed, and it might need that change. And I use the East Olds as an example because it was one that came to council most recently, but it's all area redevelopment plans and area structure plans, not just that one. So definitely a topic that we would have to address every time one of these reviews were done by administration. I don't even mean a review by us. Administration would review it, come back to us and say, we see no need to do an investment into this, or we absolutely need to do an investment in this. So it's really a two-part process between administration and council. But good point, I did consider it. I did put in a caveat there in my example of how we would address that.
Very good. So I would entertain Councillor Cummings, you to go ahead and read your motion with the date change of July 7th as amended, due to the fact there are people watching and they might not have privy to what we're reading here.
Absolutely, and I apologize to everyone. This is a huge motion. So I move that council direct administration to prepare a policy requiring that all statutory area structure plans and area redevelopment plans adopted by the town of Olds be formally reviewed at least once every 10 years from the date of adoption or last comprehensive review to assess their continued relevance and alignment with the town's municipal development plan and infrastructure capacity and evolving community needs. And further, that administration be directed to prepare a list of all existing ASPs and ARPs to, in effect, along with their adoption dates, identify any plans that are currently more than 10 years old or approaching the 10-year threshold, develop a proposed schedule for plan reviews based on priority and available resources, and report back to council with a draft policy and implementation plan no later than 7th of July's 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Very good. Does council need any further questions before I call the vote? I will then call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And once again, thank you for your work on this, and we look forward to bringing it back to the table. All right. We will be coming to a closed session of our agenda at this point. I will read for you when council goes into a closed session for continued participation in the virtual council meeting. Stay online in the live stream meeting platform. And the meeting stream will be replaced by a graphic. When the graphics are removed, that will indicate that the meeting is ready to reconvene. I would like a motion, please, to move into a closed session. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I move that we go into a closed session at 2:46 p.m. Under item number 1, under FOIP Section 25, disclosure harmful to economic and other interests of a public body, to discuss the land use bylaw. Item number 2, FOIP Section 25, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party, to discuss some service levels. And item 3, under FOIP Section 17, disclosure harmful to personnel privacy for an HR issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming and attending our council meeting this afternoon. Sorry? Oh, yes, of course it does. You're learning very well. We have a motion on the floor from Councillor Cummings, and I now will call the vote to move to a closed session. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you once again for your attendance. Much appreciated. And we will take a 5-minute bio break. Welcome back, and thank you for your patience. We have now reconvened back, and we will rise and report, and I will call on Councillor Cummings for item 1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I move that we accept as presented the land use bylaw review update.
Very good. I will now call for the vote. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And for item 2, I'll call on Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that, there we go. I move that the information we received in regards to service level be received for information.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And item 3, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move the council accept the personnel report for information.
Very good, Councillor Ryan. I will call the vote. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Once again, thank you all for attending the meeting for May 12th, and I adjourn the meeting at 4:13 p.m.